Miami's postseason chances. Take a listen.
That's a big reason why I signed here, because I feel like there's a really good opportunity here. Very talented team, all over the field, both offense and defense. And when you go through the roster and just who you have, you just see so many people that, I feel like if we can play together and really build that team chemistry you need, we'll be a force to be reckoned with.
Okay. Brew, do you want to open up the concert, or do you want to be the closing act? It's up to you.
Well, I think Nick has something to say.
Well, what's the question, Wilds?
The question is, are the Dolphins legit Super Bowl contenders?
Okay, so here's the thing. I like that they changed defensive coordinators. No matter what you think of Vic, he wasn't working for them, with their players. Now maybe he is not.
He's going to work wonders in Philly.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that, but what I'm saying is I think it is good that they needed a change there. I love Mike McDaniel. That defense will be healthier, and obviously they have all the skill guys in the world. So this ultimately is simply a Tua question, which is right now, if I were to ask you, I'll ask you, Brew, because you just kind of showed it a moment ago. Who are the 4 biggest contenders in the AFC? Tell me the teams.
Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston.
Okay, who are the 4 best quarterbacks in the AFC? Those 4 with Joe Burrow deserves to be in there, but that's a weird thing because it's just injury. In this conference, when everyone feels like at some point we're going to have to face the final boss in the playoffs, the question is, can our quarterback match up? And so I don't mean, and every football conversation does not have to be a quarterback conversation. This one is. Are the Dolphins legit Super Bowl contenders is a question of, do you think Tua has another level he can get to? Because if he doesn't, then no, they're not.
So at this time of the year, I like to believe that the answer is they are. Because if they're not, we have just a very small list of teams that can win the Super Bowl. They're 12th in the NFL right now in Super Bowl odds. So if we're saying that Miami's no shot at a Super Bowl, then neither is the Rams or the Packers or the Falcons or the Bears or the Jaguars or the Browns.
Well,
and that's because their odds aren't below
they aren't. Other than maybe Green Bay.
I mean, maybe, but like that's just not normally how the NFL works. There's half the turnover in the playoffs every single year. This team won 11 games.
Thank you.
They scored more points than any team in the AFC last year. And in the playoffs, I don't think they were going to win that game in Kansas City in the cold. But
you're darn right they weren't going to win it in the cold.
Look who's missing.
Oh, here we go.
This matters.
Oh, no.
This is their entire pass rush. A lot of their secondary.
So many people picking the Dolphins. These were these game day scratches.
Okay, they were not game day scratches, all of them. But my point is like, in a world where this top offense is healthier defensively, maybe they have home field advantage.
Well,
maybe they're playing games in warm weather. Like it's not.
Now you're playing Bruce music.
It's just not ridiculous to rule them out right now.
You saved it.
They're going to be fun.
I saved it.
They're going to be dazzling. Yeah. Exciting. A veritable spectacle is what they'll be.
I teach you.
Which is a lot like what? Break dancers. All right? You love to stand there and watch them. Times Square, they're not here. We should have
spent our budget on the
Times Square, the subway, somewhere. You go see some break dancers. All right? You know when they're not, at least to my knowledge, when I've never seen them out on Times Square.
Too icy.
Yes, when it's cold. All right? I mean, and I'm not even cold, just brisk. Just not 75 and sunny.
Yeah, sweater weather.
All right, here it is. I mean, they got to deal with this. This is kind of piggybacking on Nick. Tua's 0-6 when it's brisk.
Yeah, brisk.
A tad bit chilly.
Yeah.
Right?
Get a coffee.
I mean, so they got to fix that, and then they got to beat up something other than tomato cans. They were 1-6 last year against playoff teams. So,
Wilds,
they're a playoff contender, not a Super Bowl contender.
Do you think if every game was played in 70-degree weather, we would think drastically differently about Tua? Because I don't. I just don't think he has it.
A little differently, though.
But I'm asking because Wilds is a Tua guy.
Well, I'm starting to become a Tua guy because, 11 wins matters. We're going to give the Jets so much credit for their 7 wins. And I believe that if he threw for the most passing yards in the entire league, But I like that stuff. Okay. And I like Mike McDaniel, and they added OBJ. I don't know, OBJ still doesn't, it's not old OBJ, but he's not.
I mean, they got great skilled players.
Yeah,
no
and
doubt.
Okay, so let's talk about this because I think it's a very interesting question. Now, I agree with what he was saying. Danny, I think his name is. I can't remember his name. Where he was saying about all the missing pieces. Everyone wants to act like those guys missing just had no impact on the game, and that's just insanity to me. Because the game was close enough. Where to think that those players wouldn't have had no impact. Like what are we saying? We're saying that then all of these starters have no impact on a game. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And if that's logically true, then why did Patrick Mahomes have a down season? Because the argument was, well, what about the passes and the players weren't good enough? He didn't have good enough offensive weapons or consistent enough offensive weapons. Therefore, they impacted Patrick Mahomes' play, which therefore impacted how good the Kansas City Chiefs were. So now just completely removing these players and having players that were just being signed off the street to act like that doesn't have any impact on a game is just bonkers to me. It makes no sense. If those players didn't impact the game, then no one should pay any players any amount of money. They should be paying them $500,000 a year. I mean, I just don't know what we're talking about. People, for whatever reason, the media and fans, because they adopt that, are so obsessed with this idea that injuries don't matter and you have to overcome them. And it's just nonsense. It's absolute fundamental nonsense. Okay? That impacted. I'm not saying that the Miami Dolphins would have won that game if they had those players. I'm not necessarily saying that. But to act like it would have no impact makes no sense to me. Or if they did have a great impact on that game, that the Chiefs would have magically just found a way to win that game. It just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. So that's that one aspect of it. And I think that those injuries near the end of the season made the Dolphins look more like fool's gold than they really were. Now, I agree with what Brew was saying about how they only beat, they were 1-6 against playoff teams. And one of those teams was the Cowboys, who I didn't think were ever really that good to begin with. And so that does bode against the Miami Dolphins. But I will say this, based on what we saw, because let's say they did have a better defense, because that defense was already banged up and injured against that Bills team on that final game of the season, and they win that game, well, then they would have home field advantage. They would be in a better position to dominate, or to at least win, I should say, not dominate, but to win. And so we really don't know. And it's so funny that Nick wants to talk about injuries, or their lack of injury, or saying that those injuries don't matter or have any effect. But yet for Trevor Lawrence, he wants to give all the excuses in the world due to injuries. So again, which is it? Do injuries matter? Yes or no? Doesn't make any sense. But I will say that I do agree with Nick at this point, where it does all come down to Tua at this point. Because I think, especially now if the defense is actually healthy and all that, I think the defense will be good, or better at least. I think the offense, you have the weapons, you have the great head coach, and now you have the continuity of that. His first year with McDaniels, you could say, okay, that was his first year with him. He was kind of learning, figuring stuff out, and he also got injured. And then this past second year, you're like, all right, things were rolling well. He was playing well. Yeah, his numbers went down when it got cold or whatever. Or, yeah, he had a couple rough games here and there, but they played really great, balled out, was in the MVP race. And then, they just fell apart at the end of the season because of injuries. What can you do? Now, outside of injuries and any of those types of things, it will come down to Tua. Can Tua be the difference maker? Josh Allen proved to be the difference maker when it was the Bills versus the Dolphins in that final game, right? Josh Allen is the one that carried the Bills on his back in that game, beat the Dolphins, and got them into the playoffs. That was Josh Allen. Josh Allen put the Bills on his back, right? And multiple plays to convert that one first down in the fourth quarter. He went on like a 15, 20-yard run, whatever it may be. Like, he just did play after play after play. Tua this season has to prove that he can be that guy. Can he make that perfect throw like Patrick Mahomes did against the Ravens for their play to ice the game? Can he extend a play like Josh Allen? Can he, when they're down by 2 scores, Can he do what Jalen Hurts did in the Super Bowl, which was march that team down, run for a touchdown, and then force himself and run for a 2-point conversion to tie the game? Can Tua prove to do those things? I'm not saying he can't, but he has to prove that he can do it when it matters most. Putting up all those numbers are great. The Dolphins winning, that's great, but you have to do it. You have to put yourself in a position to win. And to me, that was a difference. And I know Dolphins fans don't want to hear this, but even though the Chiefs beat the Bills, you could still make the argument that Josh Allen still put the Bills in a position to win that game against the Chiefs. It was his receivers that dropped the ball, missed field goal, all that. I wouldn't say that Tua put the Miami Dolphins in a position to win the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is okay. I'm okay with that because I think that was Tua's first playoff game. And it was bitter, freezing cold. You're going up against this elite defense, the number 1 defense in the NFL. So it's you're already not set up to really be successful in that regard. I mean, that's a tough game for anyone, whether it's Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Purdy, whoever. So I don't even really hold Tua's feet to the fire for that. So I don't knock him. But we also can't credit him either, right? So you still just stay with the question mark. So I really want to see Tua take another step forward, and I think he can. As you guys all know, I'm a big Tua fan. I want to see Tua succeed. So to me, though, this really will, because there won't be excuses. If Tua doesn't play great or the Miami Dolphins don't win outside, like I said, outside of a terrible defense and terrible injuries, there won't be the excuse because the roster is good enough. The coaching staff is good enough. And if the health is there, then the difference maker would have to be Tua. Can Tua put his team in a position to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, the Houston Texans with CJ Stroud? So it will be fascinating to see what Tua can do. I believe in Tua. I don't think Tua's some scrub. Like Nick Wright just straight up said, Tua's just not the guy. He just doesn't have it, I think is what he said. And I disagree with that. I think Tua can be a big game player. And I don't think we have to question his talent. If you want to question his health, which I know also makes Miami Dolphins fan very angry, I get that. But I don't think you can doubt Tua's talents and abilities, especially if you give him a good coach and a good roster. I think he's more than capable of doing exactly what the team needs him to do and execute that offense. But you know, to point out how he wasn't able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs as this massive negative, and that's evidence as to why he's not the guy and not good enough, I think that's just unfair. Oh, here, Tua, go win this game against the best defense in the NFL and the Kansas City Chiefs, and going up against Patrick Mahomes in the bitter freezing cold where it was so cold, they're literally still doing amputations from people who have gotten severe frostbite and damaged their extremities. Go ahead, go win that game. And if you don't, that means you're clearly not good enough. It's what are we saying here, right? Makes no sense. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Tua and the Miami Dolphins are legitimate Super Bowl contenders? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.